Hi everyone, I'm Dan.
And I'm Erica.
And we have been living a ketogenic lifestyle for very close to 4 years now, about 3.5 I think.
Wow.
We started in July 2016, so that's gone really quickly. And we collectively have lost about 95 kilos in that time. And we run a website called Have Butter Will Travel.
Yes, so on our website we share loads of keto and low carb recipes and also information. And also we have a YouTube channel with the same name, Have Butter Will Travel, where we share recipe videos and also just daily insights into how we live a low carb lifestyle.
Yeah, so our speciality, I guess, is how we live our own lives.
Yeah, so we're really into showing people, like, from a practical perspective, this is what we eat on a day-to-day basis. These are, the swaps we make at restaurants, all those type of things. And that's what we wanted to share with you today. If you're perhaps, only just hearing about low carb, or you've been wanting to give it a go, but you're not sure how you could, practically make changes in your life or how it would impact your family, that's what we wanted to talk about today.
We also run a Facebook group called Aussie Low Carb Community. And there's about 8,000 people in that group now. And it's a really good place to ask any questions that you have if you're starting out or anything that you're not too sure on. We're in there all the time as well. So if you've got a question for us, you can pop it in the group.
And what I love about it is everyone just shares their meals that they're eating. So you always get inspiration. So definitely come and join our group, Aussie Low Carb Community. Also, we have our own cookbooks that we produce, which have loads of family friendly, easy, keto friendly meals, and we also have dairy free options, and everything's based on kind of Australian ingredients, stuff that you can get at the supermarket. So a lot of people find them super useful for like everyday weeknight meals. So make sure you check out the code that's provided by Tracy to get a discount on the cookbooks.
I would also like to take the opportunity to thank Tracy, one, for running this awesome virtual summit. It's so cool that it's all female speakers, which I really like.
Yeah.
And that it's virtual. So you don't have to get to the Gold Coast or get to Melbourne. You can just log on and watch it as it comes out, which is awesome.
Yeah, and thank you so much for including us. We're super excited to be a part of it, and we hope that we can share some practical info for you to get started with low carb.
So what we thought we would do our talk about today is really some tips and tricks around how to implement low carb into your kind of cooking and kitchen and things like that. So the first section we were going to talk about were kind of easy low carb swaps.
Yeah, and some things that are handy just to have in your pantry all the time so you can make a quick and easy meal. We also wanted to talk about like some of the kitchen gadgets or kitchen equipment that we find super helpful for living a low carb lifestyle.
And then we thought we would talk to you about some of our favorite meals and the quick and easy meals that we use a lot. They are also really family friendly, a lot of the meals that we like to eat. Okay, so let's look at some easy low carb swaps. My first tip, if you're beginning your low carb lifestyle, is to clear out your pantry. Pull out anything that doesn't really suit the low carb lifestyle. Also, if you have a family and you're the only person that's going to be living the low carb lifestyle, I would recommend putting their stuff in a tub or in a little kind of basket, so it's not always at your eyesight every time you go into the cupboard.
Yeah, and a good way to kind of, go through your pantry and look at things could be looking at what type of ingredients are in products. So products that contain things like sugar and wheat, and rice are probably things that you might not want to have anymore. And also looking at the nutritional panel and looking for products that are less than 5 grams of carbohydrates per 100 grams. That way you kind of you know, it gives you a bit of a guide to go off. So looking at the ingredients, looking at the nutritional panel, and seeing if those products can be, you know, factored into a low carb lifestyle.
Yeah, that 5 gram rule is just an easy way of looking at something and ruling it out quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we are to look at some swaps, one of the biggest things that gets removed from your plate is things like pasta and rice, because they are very carb heavy, and they're just something that we're very used to putting on our plate and pairing with a protein and a sauce like spaghetti bolognese. We're used to just putting spaghetti on the plate. So there are actually some really good choices now to sub out the pasta. One of the ones we really love are zucchini noodles. You might see them called zoodles. You can now buy them pre-zoodled at the supermarket. So
super convenient.
And Coles both have similar things to this. You can also buy a spiralizer that we might talk about a little bit later and make your own. But these are a great substitute because they give you the pasta feel in terms of, like, you know, you're putting something on the sauce without the pasta carb count.
Yes, and the same goes with substituting rice. We have cauliflower rice readily available in most major Australian supermarkets now, and you can easily substitute this if you are making, say, a curry or something like that. Having cauliflower rice on the side is a really good substitute. Also, something that's in most supermarkets are these kind of cognac versions of rice or noodles, which is another good substitute, and they're like basically 0 carbs.
You find these in the health food section at Coles and Woolworths. So they're pretty easy to find in most supermarkets for us now. The other tip I will give, if you do have non-keto family members who still want their pasta and their rice, and you're cooking a meal that has that, put the pasta on their plate and use these for your plate.
Yeah, and you could probably even do like some pasta, some zucchini pasta, right? Are they going to notice if they've got
especially
a combo?
with the kids, I reckon you can get away with it.
So baking, you're probably going to be using some different ingredients to what you normally use. So you don't want to be using any kind of wheat, flour, grains. They tend to be very high in carbohydrates. So what you want to be using instead are things like nut flours. So there's a range available really easily in the supermarket now, which is great. But some examples of things you might use in keto baking would be almond flour, coconut flour, things like psyllium husks. You know, the fiber type things can help with the consistency. I would say probably if I was just starting out with low carb baking, I would look for a specific low carb recipe and follow that, rather than trying to use your existing recipe and just substitute things in, because it doesn't tend to be a 1-for-1 substitute with regular wheat flour, and the consistency tends to be different. So yeah, honestly, there is a low carb recipe for absolutely anything you could ever dream of. So just type it into Google and you'll find a recipe using some of those substitutes.
I definitely agree with Erica in that you want to probably at the start stick with low carb recipes for baking, because those people have tested them and they know that the ingredients that they're putting in it work.
Yeah, and you have to use a certain ratio of things, so that's where it can get a bit complicated, rather than just substituting in for your existing recipe like we're going to do with like zucchini noodles is just a swap for noodles, right? Yeah.
Another easy low carb swap is swapping out the bread. I know that that's a big hurdle for a lot of people. That it's really hard to consider, what do I eat for lunch if I don't have like a sandwich, because I've had a sandwich for 10 years. We really like using lettuce and a lettuce cup, like a cos lettuce, and you can just really load that up with your favorite sandwich fillings and eat it, and it really still tastes delicious. Still use your mayo and your your chicken and your tomato, and then good to go. It's really delicious.
And also, I mean, using lettuce cups is great for, you know, perhaps a san choy bao, so any sort of like, you know, savory mince type dish in there, or you can use it in replace of your tacos or fajitas that you might normally use a tortilla. So they really are pretty versatile, and it means that you can like pick it up and eat it like that, which just feels different to eating it with a knife.
You really take value in being able to pick it up and eat it. It seems so strange when you hear it now, but even burgers. So we will do burgers, and at the start we did burgers a lot, and we would just put a lettuce. We usually use iceberg lettuce for this part. It's quite difficult to peel them off without kind of tearing them, but if you can get a nice cup, 2 cups, put all your fillings on the bottom, top it, and you can actually eat it like a burger.
And it's like all the best parts of the burger.
It really is.
Like the sauce and the cheese and
the bacon, and like I could do a definitely fully loaded. What do they call it at this hamburger shop? Like the lot, a burger with a lot. Just put it on lettuce.
It will be messy, but you know that's normal anyway, right?
So another low carb swap, this one's a little bit more controversial, and I would say at the start I would avoid things sweet as much as you can. So sugar, there are low carb swaps for sugar, but the caveat for that for me is if you're starting out, just try and keep the sweet out for a little while, and once you're more confident with what you're doing, you may feel that you want to add in some sweet treats that you will need to use some sugar replacements.
Yeah.
Erica knows a bit more about that, so I'll let her talk about the sweetener replacement.
Yeah, so it is good at the start to kind of have that period where you have a bit of a break from those things, and perhaps your taste buds even change and you are less interested in sweet things. But at the same time, we're all, you know, living lives, and we have birthday parties, and we want to, you know, have celebrations with our family and friends. So it is great that there are, you know, so many sugar replacements available now that we can use and incorporate on a low carb diet. So we tend to look for ones that are more of a natural sugar alternative. So ones that are stevia, monk fruit, and then erythritol and xylitol. Usually what you'll find is that there's it's a combination is like the best option. So like a monk fruit and erythritol combination, which would be something like this Lacaco one that we have. And then, these are both monk fruit. This is like a monk fruit and erythritol version. This one's available at Woolworths, or a stevia and erythritol blend. And you'll find that if you have one that's a blend, the erythritol will give the sweetener the bulk so that it matches up for sugar in a 1-for-1 replacement. So you can substitute it into your recipe. But also erythritol can sometimes have a cooling effect in your mouth afterwards. So if you add monk fruit or stevia, it tends to eliminate that, and vice versa with stevia and monk fruit. Sometimes they can have an aftertaste on their own. So I think finding the blend is a really good option, and there are loads of kind of stevia and monk fruit substitutes available.
And there are some really good options available at the supermarket. Like Erica said, that Lacanto one is now available at Woolworths. And at Coles and Woolworths, they do have a lot of the green looking packets. Now, the hot tip with that is turn it over and have a look at the nutritional panel. If the nutritional panel has kind of 0 carbs, it means the sweetener is not got any sugar in it whatsoever. Some of them are being a little bit sneaky and still putting in some real sugar. So if you turn it over and it has carbs, that's probably not a good option. Grab another packet and look at that one.
Yeah.
A regular full cream milk can actually be quite high in carbs, and people living a low carb lifestyle tend to steer away from milk. And so an easy low carb swap for that, there's a couple really. There's nut milks. So there's lots in the supermarket now. Almond milk, macadamia milk, I've seen hazelnut milk, coconut milk. All of those work really well as a milk replacement. The other one, people who are maybe leaning a bit more keto might use cream instead of milk.
Yeah, just with the nut milks, always make sure you're going for an unsweetened version because there are varying degrees of nut milks out there. So look for one that's unsweetened. And with cream, like for example, in coffee, that's where people might normally have milk. You could just have a splash of cream instead of having milk. Also, you can actually make a milk, which sounds funny, but using like cream and water and a bit of salt, you can make it so that it's a similar consistency to
not
milk.
quite as thick as cream.
Yeah, exactly.
So now we will move on to the section where we talk about the kitchen equipment. Now, you don't need any of this stuff, but it is really helpful, and we have found we've kind of accumulated some of this stuff over time. The other kind of advice I will give you is low carb really helps if you're able to develop some skills in the kitchen. I'm not the cook, the chef in this duo. Erica is definitely the cook. But if Erica was away for a week, I could definitely cook my own meals. So it's not difficult, but you find yourself spending a little bit more time in the kitchen because you're going to prep your meals a little bit more.
Yeah, and the meals don't need to by any means be complicated. Like most of the meals we eat are fairly simple, and you will get to have a repertoire of meals that you like. But I will say we definitely eat out less and eat less takeaway options than we did before because, at home we know the ingredients that went into our food, and we can, substitute out all those things that we don't want quite easily at home.
And you might even find yourself enjoying it because you're getting kind of fulfillment out of what you're putting, like you're actually thinking about what you're putting into the meal.
You put lots of love into it, then.
Exactly.
Okay, so one thing when we first started low carb, we bought a zoodle maker or a spiralizer. So it's basically a machine where you can, you turn the handle and it pushes a piece of vegetable through and it comes out in sort of noodles. You can get ribbon ones, spaghetti type ones. And the beauty of it is you can do all sorts of vegetables. So zucchinis are great, but you can do, capsicums, onions, what other types?
Carrot.
Yeah, like any sort of vegetable you could make. And it just makes even salads a bit more interesting texture-wise, as well as using it as a substitute for pasta. Now,
we used our spiralizer a lot at the start because there was no quick buy them from the supermarket option back then. That's probably only been around for about a year. So we really liked making them, and that was my job. I would make the zoodles. One tip I will give about the zoodles is it's worth kind of salting them a little bit, and then some water will be released. Let them sit for 10 minutes and then just squeeze them out. And they're much less watery when you do that.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to be boiling them or anything like you would spaghetti. You want to be more just tossing them in a pan. And certainly, there's only 2 of us in our household, but if you had 4 or 6 people, buying them at the supermarket, I think would become a bit cost prohibitive. So this is a great job to get the kids in the kitchen.
And they will love doing that. It's fun. I liked doing it. It was fun.
Something that we use really regularly are electronic scales. So we use them for baking. Like they're really good. It's much more accurate than using cup measurements to use grams when you're weighing out the ingredients for your baking. And
we love the digital scale because it just gives us a little bit more flexibility and a little bit more accuracy than the old style kitchen scales, where you put your bowl on. And the digital scales, they're not that expensive to get. You can get a decent one at Kmart between $15 to $20. So it's worth having a scale. I think that's probably the one thing I would say it's definitely worth getting.
If you are looking to be tracking your macronutrients, which not everybody needs to do, but if you're on a situation where you've got, a meal plan you're working off or anything, that's when scales can really be helpful as well.
The next one we would recommend is having some form of high-speed blender. And the benefit behind the high-speed blender is that it's strong enough to handle doing things like nuts, So you can make your own nut milk by using nuts in the high-speed blender. The ones that aren't high-speed tend to not be able to handle the kind of force that's needed for something like nuts, right?
Yeah, but if you've got the ability to make your own nut butter, coconut butter, nut milks, all those things can be quite expensive to purchase. So if you could perhaps buy some, you know, nuts in bulk and then make your own versions of those, you'll be, you know, it's a really good way of saving some money. And also, again, you know exactly what went into it. You don't have to worry about added ingredients.
The other thing we use our high-speed blender for a lot is frozen berries being put into either a smoothie or a you can kind of make an ice cream just by freezing strawberries and then blending them up, and that gives you like a strawberry sorbet without any sugar or anything.
We really love having a slow cooker, and we use it quite regularly, probably more so in winter than we do in summer. But one thing that we do make regularly is homemade bone broth. So that can be quite expensive to buy. Really expensive. Again, so it is something that you can make easily at home using like literally leftover bones from your meals. So that's a really good use of a slow cooker. We just pop it on for 24 hours and then we try and have some broth with our meal each night, just you know, as an accompaniment. Also, it can really help with using the cheaper cuts of meat. So you can pop everything into the slow cooker, you know, some stewing beef, you know, with perhaps some curry paste or something in the slow cooker before you go off to work in the morning. And then when you come home, you've got a delicious meal waiting for you, but it's also, you know, all like the meat's just falling apart and you have, you know, you've used a cheaper cut of meat to get a delicious meal.
Well, you might be sitting there thinking, that all sounds great, Dan and Erica, but what am I going to be eating for breakfast, lunch and dinner? So now what we thought we'd do is talk you through the kind of meals we like to eat for breakfast, lunch and dinner.
Yeah, so also these things are kind of easy, family-friendly options, right?
Yeah.
Now, probably the most popular breakfast option on low carb, some sort of eggs, and then like a side of some description. So eggs you can have any way you like, scrambled, poached, fried, omelets.
I eat a lot of fried eggs.
And then you can have with it whatever, so maybe you would like some avocado, some spinach, mushrooms, bacon, sausage.
So the bacon with a side option becomes a lot of people's go-to when they start a low carb diet. So it's quite a popular choice. And hot tip, it's something that you can really do if you eat out, breakfast out. You can custom make that. Most places are going to be happy to leave the toast off. You get eggs and you can add a side or two on and you've made your own breakfast and you can still enjoy being out with your friends and still keeping it low carb.
A good make ahead option, well there's a couple really, but we really like frittatas or like crustless quiches. These are great at the end of the week. You can kind of clean out all the leftover veggies, chop them all up, pop them in a baking dish, cover with eggs and cheese, and then you've got to bake it in the oven. And then you have a frittata that you can portion up. They freeze really well. They're great to have for breakfast or lunches, and they keep well, and you can have it cold, you can have it hot. So I think a frittata or a crustless quiche is a really good option. Another really easy make ahead option is a chia pudding. So basically if you just get some chia seeds, some coconut milk, you could add a little bit of vanilla or sweetener if you like. Stir that together and then leave it in the fridge, and it kind of gels and becomes
more
like
pudding-like.
a thick pudding, and then, you know, pop some berries on top, and that's a delicious breakfast.
Another good make ahead option similar to the frittata is muffins. So we have a really delicious breakfast muffin on our website. If you just go on to havebutterwilltravel.com, search breakfast muffins, you can make a batch of those ahead of time. Pop them in the freezer again, a bit like the frittata. Kids love them and they are super easy to make. And then it's always a bonus when you go to the freezer and there's one of those in there. You feel like you've won the lottery.
And another kid-friendly option that can be made low carb pretty easily is a smoothie. So again, if you're using your nut milks rather than regular milks, you could put a bit of like full-fat Greek yogurt in there if you like, berries, even avocado, some spinach, and you could, actually we like a bit of nut butter in ours. It gives it a nice flavor. But yeah, you can make a good low-carb smoothie.
The hot tip with the smoothies is to have some berries in your freezer frozen, because it acts like ice, it makes it nice and cold, but it also makes it feel a little bit more creamy because it's more kind of icy.
Thickens it up, doesn't it? Yeah.
Next up is lunch. One of the easiest lunch options for me is just leftovers from the night before. So because there is only 2 of us, we usually make a batch of 4 of whatever we're cooking, and then there's lunch for the next day. That's so simple. That is just like an easy thing to change so that you've got lunch for the next day.
Yeah, and as I said before, a frittata, which is a good breakfast option, is also a perfect lunch option. Any sort of salad is a great lunch option. We really like to take, so like, if we're packing something to take to work or perhaps to school, a really good option could be just like some cold meats, some cheeses, some olives, some pickled vegetables, something like that. Make a little kind of antipasto plate. That's a really good option. Boiled eggs are a great option. And then anything like, chicken and mayo together, or tuna and mayo, egg and mayo, and then into a lettuce cup. So just keep your lettuce cups separate if you're packing it.
Just spoon it on and then you're good.
Yeah, and that's a great kind of sandwich alternative, as we said earlier.
Soup is also a really good lunch option, especially in winter, which in Australia we're just heading into the winter time. I think this comes out in May, so you'll be looking to do things like soups for lunch. Again, make a big batch, freeze it up into the portions, and then just grab it out of the freezer the night before, and you've got lunch ready for the next day.
Now, we wanted to just talk about some quick weeknight dinner options, because we know this can be challenging when you come home from work, everyone's tired, we don't want to know about it. So quick dinner options that we have just from things that we keep on hand. So a quick spaghetti bolognese will just be grabbing some zoodles from, zucchini noodles or zoodles from the supermarket, or perhaps getting the kids on the spiralizer. If you can find a jar of good sugar-free kind of pasta sauce.
Or passata.
And then, some minced meat, and you've got a very easy dinner there.
Curries are another really easy to put together, kind of quick throw together dinner. So you can just grab your protein. So you could do chicken, beef, seafood if you like seafood. You can get onto the lookout for some curry mixes that don't have any sugar or fillers in them. They do exist. There's quite a few good ones. Low Carb Emporium do have a lot of options there. So if you haven't found Low Carb Emporium, they have some good options. And then you can just serve it with some cauliflower rice.
Yeah, and make the base of it like a coconut milk, and that is delicious, family friendly, and pretty easy to make, and really satisfying in winter, isn't it?
It is, definitely, yeah.
Another easy dinner is like something on the barbecue or something grilled. So, like you can find some sausages that have sugar-free or low fillers as you can find. They are out there. If you look for ones that are perhaps labeled paleo at your butcher, they're generally a good option. But sausages, chops, steaks, grilled chicken, all of that on the barbecue, and then a big garden salad, and that's an easy dinner that everyone loves.
Burger patties and stuff that are also really good. You can make your own burger patties. Like we said earlier, put it on a lettuce cup, top it with your favourite fillings. Done. Easy. Very easy. We would do burgers once a week at the start.
Yeah, and using the barbecue, everything tastes yummy, doesn't it?
Yeah. We also did chicken wings a lot at the start, and they are really quite a simple thing to do. You can just throw together your favourite seasonings, bit of olive oil, toss them, and then pop them in the oven to bake, and the skin comes out nice and crispy.
Yeah, and if you have an air fryer, they come out really well and are much quicker, and they're generally a pretty cost-effective option, right?
Yeah, they're a nice cheap option, and kids tend to like chicken wings as well, so another great kid-friendly option. So we have some really awesome examples of lots of these meals on our website, havebutterwilltravel.com, and also in our cookbooks. Most of the recipes, I would say actually all of the recipes in our cookbooks are going to be pretty kid-friendly and quite easy to make.
Yeah, so if you've enjoyed and found this information useful, definitely head over to our website, that's havebutterwilltravel.com, and sign up to our email newsletter, because we send out a newsletter every week just with what we're doing, what we're eating, and I think it's really, people find it useful to get tips and ideas around, you know, just meals to serve and what to do when you're eating out and that type of thing.
Also, if you're someone who enjoys videos like this, we have a YouTube channel like we mentioned before. It's called Have Butter Will Travel. Please go over and subscribe to our channel. We do videos similar to this in a shorter format. We also do recipe videos, so there might be lots of ideas there for you to get started on a low carb lifestyle. And we also just show you our lives, what we do kind of on the weekend to, you know, what low carb looks like, but also just what our lives look like.
Anyway, we just wanted to say again, thanks so much, Tracy, for organising this. We've loved listening to all the other speakers, and we're so grateful to be included.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.